Aloha, everyone. What opportunity will be presented to you today? Welcome to Dr. P's Facets of Life series. This is pod number 37. Today's topic, during marriage. You should wake up every morning and ask yourself what you can do to make your marriage better. This is a relatively simple routine that helps establish a mindset and a healthy attitude toward your relationship. You know, if you love and respect your mate enough to allow him or her to be him or herself, and if you embrace his or her differences and celebrate his or her strengths, then you will be practicing part of a formula for a successful marriage. It is also important to understand that each of us must always be open to learning more about ourselves, one another, and our relationship. My purpose here is to share with you some ideas about how to improve and sustain your marriage in a way that will promote a healthy, loving, respectful, and lasting relationship. It is never too late to step back and take a new and fresh look at where you are now and where you want to be. Believe me, the more we understand how each of us thinks, feels, and functions, the more likely we will be able to mesh as a couple. The more intimately we are connected, the deeper and better grounded our relationships will be. A marital relationship requires 100% commitment and almost constant effort in order to not only sustain itself, but to grow and flourish. This is not unlike planting and tending a beautiful garden. The more you enrich and water the soil, the more you keep the weeds out, and the more you treat all of its facets with tender loving and care, the greater the yield and rewards will be. Additionally, the married couple should put each partner and the marriage first in all things. Next to yourself, your partner must be the most important person in your life. Of course, you should give due respect, consideration, and appropriate attention to all family issues, but put each other first as often as possible. Let's switch gears now and talk about money matters. Although circumstances can and do change over time, be real honest with each other about all financial matters. Communicate to your partner, your individual as well as your combined short, medium, and long-term goals. If you cannot identify specific goals, then it is time to get some. You both need a plan for now and a plan for later. You must be open and honest with yourselves about needs versus wants. Disagreements over money management is one of the most fought over issues in a marriage and can cause insurmountable differences between partners unless there is honesty, compatibility, flexibility, and compromise. Let's talk about communication. Communication is our means of understanding one another. We must learn to listen more and talk less. We must listen attentively, express our wishes effectively, and convey an attitude of cooperation with an open mind. When we speak, it is important that we speak in a manner that is easily understood by the listener. It is our responsibility to make sure the listener really gets what we intended to give. The listener cannot hear our internal thoughts. They can only hear our external words. Finally, the most beneficial form of communication requires both participants to be active in the process with an interested and involved attitude. A positive attitude conveys respect for the other person. Another huge aspect of marriage is romance and sex. Sexual love is not enough to sustain a marriage in and of itself. Romantic gestures of overt affection, such as kissing, hugging, stroking, and hand-holding, are all elements of physical and emotional glue that keep the relationship connected in an intimate way. In the real world, romance is in the eye of the beholder. By this I mean that it is defined on an individual basis. So it would be wise for each of us to become aware of those things that our partner feels are romantic. It's important to remember that the tone and intimacy of your relationship for the half hour of sexual contact is set by the strength of your relationship in the other 23 and a half hours of the day. In other words, the degree to which you have a harmonious relationship without sex will determine in part the degree to which you have a pleasing romantic sexual relationship. Let's talk about children. Making a plan you both feel comfortable with regarding how you will raise your children will probably be one of the toughest things you'll ever have to consider. I urge you not to bring a child into the world unless you both feel strongly about wanting to be parents. And do not, I repeat, do not have a child as a way to fix an ailing relationship. The odds are that the presence of a child will strain an already unstable situation, and one result could be the demise of the relationship. Couples who decide to have children should make certain that their relationship is on solid ground with mutually agreed upon life paths and family planning prior to having children. Let me say a few words about something near and dear to my heart: date night. This should be a necessity for all couples, especially those with children. Date night can be a refreshing and exciting time for the two of you. It can become a tradition that you will look forward to. Once a week, you should schedule this time together. Try to make sure it takes place away from the home environment. It's best to get away from any distractions so that you can just concentrate on one another. Couples absolutely need to cultivate and renew their intimate connections with one another, and this can be a good time to do that. Roles in marriage are often not discussed or defined very clearly. For those of you not familiar with the term role, it basically refers to an individual's function or participation which requires certain behaviors. We all adopt roles in a marital relationship that are based on our beliefs, lessons from our families of origin, and whatever we negotiate with our mate that seem appropriate for the relationship. This can be very much a trial and error process, or it can be pre-planned prior to the marriage and implemented temporarily or permanently. There will also be times when roles may change based on altered life circumstances or changes in your personal perspectives. Make these decisions carefully and thoughtfully together. All couples have disagreements. When doing so, it is important to be respectful of the other person's point of view and stated needs. Try to understand things from his or her point of view, no matter how difficult that may seem at times. Try to be calm. If things get too heated, finding common ground will become more difficult. So agree to walk away from the conversation for a period of time and agree to resume the conversation later. Make it a point to do just that. If you have children or are planning to have children, do not fight or argue in front of them. They do not understand this process and may have to pay an emotional price for being exposed to that. Let me conclude by talking about emotional bank accounts. We all have our own private and personal emotional compartments within our minds. I refer to them as our emotional bank accounts. Actually, I'm not sure, but I may have first heard that term many years ago from Dr. Phil McGraw. The list of reasons why withdrawals from those accounts are too numerous to list, but please know that whenever we are disappointed by life's challenges or by someone else's behavior, there are emotional losses or withdrawals taking place. Now, the best way to counter those withdrawals is to receive deposits into our emotional bank accounts. Those can come in many forms, such as, but not limited to, positive comments and compliments that are directed toward us. Others doing nice and thoughtful things for us. Having a positive life experience. And the list can go on. As a life partner, you should be making frequent deposits into your loved one's emotional bank account. These deposits do not have to be large or grand. On the contrary, they fill the account faster if they are in the form of lots of small deposits on a regular basis. Emotional bank accounts which are kept full will build strength in a relationship and pay wonderful dividends. That's it for this time. This is Dr. P saying aloha.